Of course.
Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or good afternoon, good evening, or middle of the night. Who knows when you're watching this?
Good moments. That's right.
Good moment. I like that. Good moment.
How's everything going?
Oh, beautifully. So I just have so much going on. It's so exciting. I did that summit last week for my first speaking engagement on a summit. So that was on the 20th. When was that?
Last Tuesday.
The 8th. I lost track of days. I'm because I'm planning on the next weeks ahead. So the 8th, my first speaking engagement for the Voices of Women for the International Women's Day. It was their second year doing that. Out of that is going to be a compilation book that I'll be a part of as well. So I'll have a second book this year as an author. And now I'm getting ready to do another speaking engagement next Tuesday for positive shifts. And I'm like, how cool. Yeah. So it's a transformational and spirituality summit. And this is their second year as well. So I'm feeling very blessed to get on both of these platforms where they're actually fresh and be in that process. So that's exciting. And gearing up for my first book to be coming out, which the update is probably around May. We had a call on it yesterday. And so yeah, just so much is happening. It's so exciting and a blessing, and things are coming to fruition. It's like when we're working towards something and you just feel like you're not getting anywhere or nothing's happening or you feel stuck, like you keep showing up and you keep doing the process and you keep doing the things, the to-do list, and you just feel like nothing's happening. Like that could be so frustrating. And I totally get it because that's where I was last year and the year before that. And I just felt like, I'm putting in a lot of hours, a lot of effort to build what would be my dream of helping other people. And then just feeling like nothing's happening. There's no reciprocation. Like I'm the giving of my time and energy, but nothing in reciprocation. And now so much is happening all at once. And it's my job to stay in the flow of it, stay in the creativity of it, stay in the journey of it. And this is so funny because yesterday I had a conversation with myself of staying in the creativity and the joy of the journey instead of focusing on the end result. Because once that's completed, right? Once this process is completed, once the book is launched and people are buying it, then what, right? We're always looking for the then what? What's next? What's next? What's next? We're not embracing and enjoying the moment leading up to the book being launched and bought. And so interesting enough, I had that conversation with myself yesterday morning. I was like, listen, let's be in the joy of this, because I'm telling you, I'm like the email queen right now. I'm setting up tons of emails right now for all these things that I have going on. And when you're not super excited about writing emails and creating emails, it's like, it's bleh, right? But it's part of the process. And it's also part of the creativity. It's creating, forming the words that's going to connect with the audience, the person reading the email. And so I had this conversation with myself. I'm like, listen, we got to be in the creativity, the joy of it right here, right now. This is part of the process. You're learning, you're growing, you're expanding. Look at all the people that you're going to be touching and affecting their lives and how they move forward with their own life and the beauty of what's coming out of this, right? Having this conversation with myself. Then I get on a call with a mastermind group I'm in, and guess what the topic is? Exactly what I was talking to myself about. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me right now, right? So I had the conversation with myself. I got the confirmation from the outside sources that I was on the right track. So I guarantee you, this is why I'm so happy today, because I am being in the joy and the creativity of this business as I move forward. And here we are. So does that answer your question? How am I doing?
Yeah. No, actually, it says a lot of stuff. I mean, you talked about being stagnant, feeling like nothing's going on. And we feel like that oftentimes we do feel like that, but it doesn't mean that things aren't going on. There's constantly an evolution happening. Even thinking about that being stuck and you felt like you were, putting forth a lot more than was being brought back. And it's like, all that did was have an asking, okay, well, I'm doing all these things and I would like to see more of this. And that there's nothing wrong with that. This is how we're creating. So even in those times that we feel like nothing is happening at all, you are creating so many wonderful things. Even if it doesn't feel good, you're still creating all the time. It's like I talked about recently, people are talking about, so much going on around us and things that we don't like. And it's like, all that is just letting you know, I want something better than that. And then it's making you think about, what does that look like? And we've talked before about saying, I'd like that or something better. So it's not limiting it with our thoughts, but being open for more. Like, this is a direction I'd like it to go in. So look what's going on for you. That's just proof of how that works, how this whole creativity works, how we are the master creators of our lives. You're demonstrating that already for yourself. And then it's like everyone else gets to feel it around you. Everyone else. When you talk about going through those stagnant times, I was listening to a speaker this morning and he says, we can't be the light all the time.
Yeah.
We can't.
Right.
If we were the light all the time, we wouldn't be in a physical body.
Right.
So sometimes we're going to step into the dark and it's like people, even for me, I felt like that too. It's like, once you get into the light, that I'm going to always be in that light. But that's not the way it works.
No.
Because you've got to dip into those, the what you don't have, or, just what the hell does Abraham call it?
Yeah, I hear you.
Contrast. The contrast. When you step in, it's just contrast. I couldn't even think of what it was, but it's just contrast.
We
It's
can't even think of
more.
the word because we're not in alignment with it right now.
Exactly. But it's happening all the time. And it's like, if we just, but that's enjoying the journey too, because if you could recognize that, that's still enjoying the journey. Every single time that I've thought that I've been stagnant, everything's going on. And once you get over that hump, or once you get into a shift, like you're having the shift and you're having the confirmations. But once you go through that shift, you can look back and it's almost like, I don't know if it's part of it, but for me, it is. When I go through a shift, I recognize, because I guess I'm constantly bringing it forth to clients and stuff. Hey, look how far you've come. And I do the same thing with myself. Look how far you've come. You didn't even think that way before. The only reason you think this way, or you wish you would have done something different or anything like that, is because you have we call it tools, but we've had new thoughts. We've created something more for what we want. And it's like, if you weren't great in a relationship before, well, guess what? Your next relationship can be great. The thing is not to be continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again.
Yep. And when we dip into what you might call contrast or darkness or low vibrational emotions, that is just an indicator for us to learn more, rise up, shine brighter. And when I say rise up, that means you're moving through it in a way of learning from it, gaining that wisdom. I just love that word. You're going to hear me say it every single week, wisdom. But gaining that wisdom, and the more wisdom you have, the brighter you shine, because you're now that beacon of light for other people. And even if it's just an example of it's possible to rise. Right? Just shining the light for people, giving them hope. Because when we lose hope, that's when I know for me, when I lost hope, that's where suicide came into play. And when people don't have hope, that's like their deepest, darkest moments. So when we go through that darkness in our own life, the chaos, the shit storms, whatever, that we move through it, and we've learned valuable lessons, then we implement what we learned, right? That's how we become wise, is because we've implemented what we've learned. We become wiser and we shine brighter. that gives other people hope, because now we can speak the words of possibilities.
From our own experience, and this is our own
Yes.
experience. It doesn't mean it's got to be the way everybody else moves forward or anything like that. I don't know everything. I
No,
don't know. I mean, in the spectrum of things, I probably don't know anything. I don't, but as I'm learning, and I believe it's the same for you, that as we do this together, we're just demonstrating what other possibilities you have. There's another path. I feel like the energies are shifting so much. Some of the people that I listen to, they're even talking about, even this month, we're going to notice a shift in the energy to a shift of hope. So even those hopeless feelings that we've been having for a long time, there's been a lot of stuff that's going on for the last couple of years. We're stepping into another area because as a collective, we're voting for better.
right.
And that's because we've looked at experiences. There's just such an evolution going on right now. And it's like, all I can say, like visually, I see it. We've talked about it, just being on a freaking roller coaster, like get strapped in,
Yeah,
have
arms
your
and
eyes
legs
wide
in the
open.
car.
That's right. Wide open eyes and check out the whole trip that you're going on right now.
Yeah,
Because you're going to go on it, and then you're going to go on it, and you're going to go on it, because you're going to see something different each time you ride that ride. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It feels, I'm not telling you that it feels like an amazing ride all the time, because it certainly does not always. But that's all right, because that gives someone else the opportunity to be the light. Just like I was always a strong one, at least I always looked
right.
like I was a strong one, managing everything, I didn't cry, I didn't do this because I got to make sure everybody else is taken care of. And no, and it can't be that way. And it can't be all that way, because I don't allow anybody else around me to learn how to be the strong one. So it's good for us to both be in both sides of this. It's just part of life. It's part of what we came here for, this emotional experience. And it's really checking in with ourselves. It's been an awesome thing. I'm really recognizing how many times that I stepped up on my high horse because I thought I knew. Just like when you start going through the spiritual evolution and you're like trying to get the other person, like, I know better. You need to fucking listen to me right now, so you can
Right.
grow. I know how you can grow if you would just listen. And
Right.
it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. That's me being on my high horse. And if it's still a trigger, then that means that I'm not standing in my truth, because truth doesn't have to fight for itself. Truth just is, right? I've
Yep.
heard that this morning. Truth just is. When you look around the world and you see all the things that are going on, and you hear all the stuff that they're fighting and saying, this is the way it's got to be, and this is going to be this, truth does not have to fight for itself. And it won't. It doesn't have to be a match to that energy, because it can't. There's no match.
Doesn't have to be
It's not
questioned
possible.
either. I don't feel like it needs to be questioned.
No, because it's just a matter of knowing. It's just a knowing. And you feel it. I'm talking to someone last week, and she's talking about watching the news and how she saw this stuff, and the person's holding this animal, and she got all this emotional stuff about the animals and stuff, like worried about like how these people are going to just leave their homes. And then I hear another client talking to me, and she's like, oh my gosh, I was watching the news again. She says, I walked into the room, and she says that these people that are talking, they're all speaking English. She says the dogs looks like they've been groomed, just like she says, I pay about as much as I do for my massages as I do for my dog to get groomed, and that these dogs look this groomed. And every single person they're talking to is speaking English. She says, I'm doing research, and for herself, this is something that she's guided to. I'm doing research and looking, and English is not even listed on the list of any of the languages that they typically speak in that country. Not even. So it's ironic. And so I tell people, and I've been telling people, this goes back to not seeing everything and believing it. You got to trust your intuition. I told the person, I said, next time you're watching the news and you see something you don't like and it hits your emotional triggers, pause it, turn it all the way down, rewind it, and watch it again. I said, because truth is truth. You can't fake all this stuff that's being portrayed. And a lot of the stuff is, from what I'm having an understanding of, is not factual. It's not true. So it's like, feel the energy of that person. The lady was telling me, she's like, I'm looking at the animal. There's no stress on the animal. I'm watching the videos. There's no dust or debris. She says, you remember 9/11? She says, I watched it. She said, there was debris everywhere. It was chaos. It was a mess. You couldn't fake that energy. I said, exactly. You can't. So all of us, it really is. And I'm not saying that anything is truth or untruth. I'm saying go back into your intuition, because your internal guidance inside of you is going to tell you what is true and what's not true.
Absolutely. I was getting chills and I'm not cold, but I was getting those chills in my body. I'm like, oh, preach it, Bev, preach. I got them chills going on.
You're so funny. But it's awesome because I confirmation is chills for me too. So totally is.
He talks about the roller coaster. You climb the high. The excitement is when you go high, right? And you're going up because you know what's coming, right? You're gonna
you're like seeing it,
right? You're gonna go.
Yeah.
And when you say that, I know this is what I'm like, oh shit, did you go down? That's when I'm heading into some low vibrational stuff. When that old shit comes out, I'm like, oh shit. It's not no shit excitement either. But I'm hanging on and I'm willing to dip. And then what's next? Right? What's next? You go back up.
Yeah.
It might be just a little, it might be a lot, right? So just having the awareness that, okay, an experience is coming and bring it. Let's go. Because here's the interesting thing. The more you've experienced and the more you've gone through your own healing process, implemented what you learn, the next experience that comes up is not going to seem that crucial. Whereas 10 years ago, it would have been devastating. And now it's like, all right, universe, right? We have a conversation with the universe. Like, all right, I know, I brought this on. There's something for me to learn. And this is where we ask, right? Help me through this. Help me get through this. Help me see what I can learn from it and grow and be and do better. That's one of the things I live by is how can I be and do better? And I tell you, the universe gives me plenty to practice to fulfill that phrase and do better. Oh, yes. And learning, my learning experiences are not going to be the same as Bev's, and they're not going to be the same as anybody else. They're going to be similar. All of our experiences are similar. This Voices of Women Summit, there was 205 speakers, 205 women and girls speaking. I've listened to about 10 of the recordings, and about half of them have mentioned molestation, which is in my experience. Doesn't mean we had the same experience, but we have a common knowledge of it, right? So nobody's going to have an exact experience as you have had. However, you're not alone in your experience. I don't care who you are on this planet. There's nobody on this planet who has experienced something that 700 billion people, nobody else has experienced. So we want that message to be very clear that you're not alone, and it's very important to find what speaks to your heart in your healing practice, healing those experiences that you had. And as like Bev was talking about, there are some teachers that you're just absolutely not going to resonate with because they're not speaking your truth. And it's knowing, it's that intuitive guidance that you're connecting to what's true for you. And even Bev and I, not everything's true for each of us, but we're open to hearing and being willing to hear each other's processes, right? We want to understand, how are we thinking? How are we engaging? How are we looking at ourselves? How are we connecting to spirit? And it could be too, Bev experiences something or has a tool in her toolbox, in her kit that helps her. I'm willing to hear it and listen. I'm just not ready to implement it because it doesn't feel true for me right now. Maybe it never will. Maybe tomorrow it will. I mean, we just don't know. So it's being open to hearing other points of view, even out of 205 speakers, does it mean I'm going to agree with every one of them? I don't know, but I'm willing to listen to them and hear what has worked for them, because here's the thing, even by listening and learning from them as a coach, a spiritual advisor, I have now more information, more knowledge that I could help other people with somebody else's tools, right? I'm being resourceful. I'm saying, here's what I've heard has worked for this person. Maybe this will work for you. I have not used it, and I'll be very honest with people, I haven't used it, but it sounds like something that might resonate with you, right? So we can still be resourceful if we're open to hearing what other people have used.
Which is a gift. Hearing itself, just stopping and listening is a gift. Most of my life I haven't. And then you think about that as far as even on, if you're wanting to grow your own gifts, if you're wanting to enhance your ability to hear the things that aren't going on around you, or that you don't think's going on around you. You want to be able to hear spirit. You want to be able to hear the guidance. You want to be able, whatever it is, it starts with stopping and listening.
Oh man.
Yeah, because if you don't, because I didn't, if you don't, you're not going to hear. If you can't hear the people around you, how could you hear anything outside of yourself?
Right.
Well, I say outside of yourself, but it's not outside of yourself. It's actually within inside of yourself.
And here's a great example. Staying in the creativity and the joy of this process that I'm in right now, and holding on to the faith, having faith and hope that things are going to come to fruition and blossom, and everything's going to be more amazing than I anticipated. 222. I have seen that so much in the past week in so many random places. And it's one of those things, I'll be working away, I'll be working my head down, and just happen to look up and look right at the time on my laptop. Or same thing in the kitchen. I cooking, I look up, bam, 222 on the clock. Or yesterday I was driving and I'm looking over in some other direction, and it was like, turn your head. And just as I turned, there's a car in front of me, just went past me on their license plates, 222. Like, these numbers are everywhere. And those are the messages that we have to be present to see them and acknowledge them. And it helps, like for me, I have an angel numbers book. So of course I come home, I'm like, I gotta look these numbers up, because numbers are everything to me. And on the treadmill yesterday, it had 100, 22, 11, 88. I'm like, yeah, I need to look those numbers up for sure. And again, I take my cell phone, right? And I have it on a video, because I watch a video while I'm walking on the treadmill. So my eyes are on my cell phone. And it's one of those things, look up, and I look up 100, 22, 11, 88. I'm like, oh, I got to remember those numbers. I got to look those up, because there's a reason why I saw them. All of them pertain to hope, faith, abundance, focus, and trust. It's, trust is a big thing too.
It really is. And that starts from within. I mean, it really does. If you're looking outside of yourself to form that trust, it just doesn't. People are going to let you down. I mean, it's just not, and it's not because they're doing anything on purpose. It's just to remind you to go within and trust within. It's like all the stuff doesn't resonate with everybody. I find it interesting. I'm talking to a person last week, and he's talking about, he's like, I've gone through a spiritual awakening, which was such a great experience for me. It didn't feel like it initially, but then as I processed it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get it. And we're talking, and it's like, we weren't even on the same page at all. He's like a born again Christian, so he's seeing things differently. And he's talking to me, and then he says, well, I imagine because you do massage, you probably believe in the chakra or the chakras or whatever. And he says all this new age stuff is like, it's devil worship. And I had to stop and process that for a little bit. And I thought, well, it is definitely an area that people can go fishing. I mean, if you want to put someone in a bad position, which there's always that, but that's again, trusting your intuition. Who are you listening to? What advice are you following? Because it doesn't feel bad. That's the thing. This stuff doesn't feel bad. So he's talking about that, and I'm thinking, well, and I'm not a master of chakras. I've read about them. I've looked into them. I would say I have a basic understanding about them. And I'm thinking, well, how could someone perceive it that way? And it's like, well, because fear doesn't know. I mean, and fear doesn't go looking at it. And I looked at it, I was doing some research on it. It's like it was 1500 to 500 BC that it began. BC, before Christ. Like, I mean, so before that was even an acknowledged story, it's like that it's always been around. And it's like, we're not like going out and doing some offerings of the pigeon, or, you know what I mean? We're not, there's nothing that I could perceive in that way. And it's like, so for me to break it down, it first of all wasn't personal. And then he was saying something, and I said, well, I believe in living our lives. We still, from my perspective, we still live an honorable life. We still, we know when we do something wrong, it doesn't feel good. You know how it feels. So it's like, I don't go and do whatever I want to do. But I mean, I guess I would say that I do whatever I want to do. I'm not doing something that would be harmful or hurtful to somebody else. That's never my intention. But it's like, I don't live, if I feel like if something has to control you or make you fear, or you feel like you have to earn something to get somewhere, then from my perspective, you need to look at it again and revisit that and have an understanding. But it was great also because it's like, we're going through such an evolution. I don't know where I'm going as far as a career goes, or what my life journey looks like. And I'm going to have this type of stuff that comes up to me. This person, I do like this person. It's not that I don't like the person. And again, going back to, well, I appreciate his response. I do. And then I recognized how it was pushing. And then it's like, it goes back to the whole thing. Truth doesn't lie. So it's like, truth doesn't have to go prove itself. Just like you said a little while ago, it doesn't have to prove itself. It just is. It just is. And I know by the way it feels. But when these things happen, it's not to get wrapped up in it. I didn't get wrapped up in it. I processed it. I started feeling like, I'm like, I wonder, does it really look like that? How does it feel like? Does it feel like that? Like, I'll go through the whole process, and I answer my own questions. I go with what feels right for me. And of course, none of that felt right, because that to me goes back to controlling things. And I'm not a person to be controlled. I mean, it might go on for a little while, but it's like, once I recognize and I feel those feelings, then you're having to burst. For me, I'm like bursting out of those chains that I've allowed myself to be imprisoned in. So it's just such a journey. Not always are you going to go out and have all these conversations that feel uplifting. I do most often, really most often. I can run into anybody at the store, and it's awesome every single time. And then to have some people that you have in your life, and then they have a different opinion, it just presented something for me to reflect upon and to really grow on, so I can step into my truth, because that's not true for me. It doesn't mean that it's right for everybody or wrong for everybody. It just wasn't true for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I find it very interesting to hear other people's input, to have an understanding how they're seeing things, and even like my son and I. Okay, so my son has a more of a ego-based drive and more of a kind of like reality type viewpoint.
Okay.
And action driven. Okay. And yes, it takes action to work towards your dreams and goals. But I mean, like, seriously, hardcore action. Like, and here I am, like, all right, universe, this is what I want, right? Da 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 da. And doing my focus, my visualization, my affirmations, taking the steps, like keep moving, right? That's always been my thing. Just keep going, keep going. So like all day yesterday, most of the day, not all day, most of the day yesterday, I was just doing emails, setting up emails, which is an action step. And it's one of those things, when you're in motion towards your goals, your dreams, your desires, the universe says, oh, she wants more of this and more of this. No, I don't want to write more emails, but you know what? Right now, if I have to, I have to do it. until I get into a space where I can say, okay, now I can hire somebody else to do it for me. But that's still an action step. So even if I hand it off to somebody else to write the emails, that frees me up for another creative piece. So now there's two of us working in a direction of my dreams and goals, right? So, and that other person benefits from being paid for their services. So here I am, I'm like a believer, and that's my truth, of co-creating with the universe. But he's dynamic at manifesting, and he's very intuitive. He doesn't really own that piece, but he is very intuitive, but he's very action driven, like power through. I'm not a power through. I'm like, there's got to be ease and flow. So we're both working on our businesses with two different mindsets. And I'm very open to hearing some of, what he has to say. He gives me input, he gives me suggestions, because he goes to masterminds and he talks to all these other different people that I'm not associated to. And he'll, he wants me to succeed. And I'm also in my bubble of co-creation with the universe. And so it's a little different mindset than the ego-based driven powerhouse, right? So but I'm still open to it. I'm still like, oh yeah, tell me what you learned. And a lot of times I'll ask him, what did you learn? What tools did you get? And he'll share them with me, and I'm like, cool. And if I feel like it's going to work for me, I'll do it. If I don't feel like it's going to work for me, I'm like, awesome, run with it, go get them, tiger. So it doesn't mean I have to, implement everything everybody's telling me, but I'm so interested in all of it. I'm interested in hearing and acknowledging, and also understanding, because as a coach, I have worked with very diverse types of people, and so knowing how to communicate with them and speak their language, and so yeah, I think it's awesome.
It is awesome. It just makes you ask yourself questions. And then it's like just asking yourself, is this good for me? And that goes all the way back to, if I'm going to take zinc, is that good for me? Asking myself, because it's not the same thing works for everybody. Everybody's looking for the same thing. There is, and I was this person, I was like trying to, if I learned Reiki, I had to do it perfectly according to the guidelines. But when you're doing things perfectly according to the guidelines, you're not really trusting your intuition. You're not going with the flow. Someone just gave you information that I paid for, but I got this information and I can do whatever I want with it from there, whatever I'm guided to. There is no perfect way. There's no right or wrong way. There just isn't.
Yeah.
Because even if you learn, even if you feel like you did something wrong in it. Wow, that was interesting. It's just me and nothing. Yeah. Nice. So it's like a nice confirmation.
Preach it, Bev. Preach it.
And they're like, that's what we've been fucking telling you this whole time, and you're not listening to us.
She's finally gotten it.
Wow.
I love it.
That's funny. That's funny.
Well, you can take that same guide. It's just like the Bible or any other book. You take that guide, that Reiki guide, because I feel you. I was there too. I was like, oh, I got to get this perfect, but by the way that this person is teaching me, by the way they are telling me and guiding me through this, right? But you take that guide and give it to 10 Reiki teachers, and 10 Reiki teachers are going to teach it all different. And the reason why they're going to teach it different is because they're going to teach it based on their experiences.
Yeah.
They're going to teach the information, what's in that. I mean, it's important that we know the history of Reiki and where it came from. We can all teach that part. But actually practicing Reiki and the sensations that you experience and the messages that you receive and the interaction with the person, with the client, like 10 teachers are going to teach you 10 different things because they've all had different experiences. And you might resonate with some of them, one of them, or none of them, because you're going to have your own experiences. And that's what I think I mentioned this before, like when I was having consistent readings with the psychic medium, she's like, you're just going to gather a whole bunch of information. You're going to make it your own. And I did. I'm just like, you're right. Because the way my teachers taught me Reiki, I don't teach it the same. Just like, because I've experienced things that they didn't touch upon. So now I have that information and knowledge that I pass to my students, and my students are going to experience what they experience, which is maybe completely different from what I have. So it's all okay. It's all okay. My whole thing is be and do better, which means I am not being malicious. I am not, I don't put people down. I won't say I don't judge people, but I will say I'm not judgmental like I used to be. That is very judgmental. Criticize. I don't even like to hear other people criticize themselves. So I don't criticize myself. I don't like to hear other, even my husband, he'll say things to himself. So I'm like, hey, no, we're not allowed to say that stuff. So, but we get in the habit of it. We get in the habit of criticizing ourselves. And so it just comes out until somebody brings it to your awareness. But be and do better. If you're into chakras and it's your truth and it feels good to you, and people live by that. They're like, oh my gosh, chakra balancing was the most amazing thing. It saved my life and it did this and did that. I'm like, great, go for it. If you own crystal chairs and you sit on them every day, great. As long as you're not harming other people. Spirit is of love and compassion and kindness, not harm. There is no harm in any form. There is no fearing anything really from a spirit-based living.
That right there is our own prison.
Yes.
I mean, you can draw a prison cell, put yourself in it, and draw the word fear underneath it or across it or whatever, because that's all it is. Self-imposed. And I know, because I've done it. I still do it on some occasions, but have more of an awareness of it. So it's just like before, I can continue making the same mistakes, or I can just start being like, that doesn't serve me anymore. That doesn't feel good. It's right now, a lot of emotions are coming up, and it's not a matter of ignoring them and acting like they didn't happen, whether it was something you did or something that felt against you, or that you're in an experience you had, whatever it is, it's just stop and feel those emotions. It really is. It's just stop and then asking yourself, for me, because it's not the same. I'll go back to the same thing that we've been talking about. It's not always what someone else has done that makes it better for you. It might be an idea, like one person says, well, you just need to be aware of the emotions and see where they take you. And for me, it's like, as soon as I'm feeling those things, I'm like, okay, I see this is coming forward, this emotional trigger, this energy is coming forward right now. How do I handle this? What do I do in order to move past this? Because I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to have wisdom from it, which you talked about, because that's why it's shown up for you, because everybody feels this way. It may not be the same experiences that got them there, but they still feel this way. Everybody gets stuck. And it's like, it's just for me to be the light bulb all of a sudden, for that person to light up, to bring them forward. And the next time I'm going to need it, just like for you, just next time I'm going to need you to lift me up. It's just, and it's not a need, because we don't even recognize it, that it's a need. It just happens to, our intuition guides us into these paths. We call them divine appointments, because they happen all the time. And it's like, you walk away feeling like amazing. You didn't feel that way when you started. Like we talked about last week, when I started out, I was like in a deep, dark space.
Yeah.
I felt like that. I felt so heavy. But by the time we were done with it, I felt so much lighter. And that was the whole process. We moved through a whole process during that whole meeting that we had last week. you know, even since I talked to a psychic because I was talking to him for the dogs, which I totally believe in, because she talked to the dogs and it's like, you're telling me stuff that there's no way people would know because the dogs freaking tell me this crap. Like,
Mhm.
I know, but I know. So it's like, she's telling me that, and I'm like asking her at the end of it, well, because we had a few minutes, I'm like, well, we got a couple minutes. I said, where do you see me on my life path or my journey? And she's like, well, with you. And it pissed me off kind of because it's like, because I fucking know it. That's why.
I'm like, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, because she already knows.
Yeah, I know, son of a bitch. But anyways, not really. But that's how I felt initially. It's like, yeah, whatever. I already know that. But she says that you're going to continue doing massage. She's like, because she asked me, what do you do? And I said, I do massage. And she says, well, you're going to continue doing massage. And I know why I'll continue doing massage, because I'm familiar with it, because I know it. And she says, what you're going to do is you're going to move into something else. She says, I see you. And there's like these 5 closed doors around you. And you can pick any door and they're going to be ideal for you. But she says, number 4, she didn't tell me what's behind number 4. It doesn't even matter that it's number 4. But she says behind that door, she says it's going to be something that you can't walk away from. Every time it's going to show up, it's going to just keep showing up, because that's what you're to be doing. And I've heard Dolores Cannon talking recently, and she says everyone's looking for their life path, but our path is really to help uplift and help others. That's what we're here for. Now,
Yes.
how we get there, like, that's in the very simplest form, but each one of us has a different way we can do that.
Right.
And she says the reason that you have all these doors is because you're cultivating right now what you're going to be doing. You're creating something new that you're going to be doing to help other people. Because right now I'm even doing the quantum healing hypnosis technique. I'm not doing it. I'm actually going through the course right now.
Yeah.
I'm learning about it.
Yeah.
And I also know that we go back to the whole thing about doing anything that we learn to do it perfectly the way the other person does. That's not the way it works. And I've already recognized that, which is awesome. And then for me to go have that treatment recently, that I know that I didn't get into this deep theta place, but I still got so much more. I've got a lot of healing from it, because it's like I don't have an emotional sadness about the way things that went with Gemini. I have an understanding that was the only way that it could be, because it was for my growth.
Yeah.
I believe it was for his growth too, but it was for my growth. It was for my growth to get me to right here. There could not have been any other way. That I told myself. And I understood that and know that to be truth. So I feel lighter. There's so many things that happened during that meeting. It wasn't perfectly the way I wanted it to be, but I also wasn't listening, because there was a person that I wanted to go to in California. And then I talked myself out of going to that person because it's further away, gas prices, blah, blah, all this other stuff, excuses. Talking myself out of something for excuses, when I knew, because Phoenix was a lot closer, so I could just go right there.
Yeah.
So I got out of it what I allowed myself to have. And I would say that was where I was at the time. That was as far as I could go at the time. And now it's recognizing that I'm no longer on my high horse. I don't think when you start recognizing how you do that in people's lives, like constantly giving the kids advice, I'm a lot better about it now, but like telling them, oh, well, I wouldn't do it that way. Or, you know what I mean? Constantly, who gives a shit? Like, honestly, they've got to figure it out too. And I don't know everything. I don't. And that was me stepping off that high horse. I don't know everything. I just do not. I have more knowledge, but I don't know everything. So it's letting them do their thing. And I'm still gathering information, seeing how they do it. So that the same as you listen to, a few of those women from your last, I want to call it Expo Summit. But you learn some different information that'll help you with other people that you speak to. It's just more tool in your tool bag. It wasn't your experience, but it's kind of along the lines of something you have experience in it. And now you're hearing it's how it's helped somebody else. So that's all we're doing, all this whole journey. We're just helping people to lead them back home, which is inside. You lead them back inside of themselves, because all that guidance is right here. No one ever needed me in the first place.
Damn it.
And that's relieving at the same time when you think about it, because you take so much pressure. I put so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
So much pressure.
What was I going to say? I was going to say that some people, the way they end up helping others is just being there for them, right? Just holding space for them, hugging them, let them cry on your shoulder, right? Some people give advice, the friends that give advice to each other. And then some people step into the teacher role, like what we do. We are in the teaching, coaching space. Some people become speakers that get their voice out there. I've stepped into that. Some people become leaders in the industry, which means like they're powerhouses. And, that would be like Deepak Chopra, Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, right? All those, Tony Robbins, like they're all powerhouses in what they do. So it doesn't matter what role, which role you take on, because it's a personal preference. Before 35, there was no way in hell I was going to be doing this or teaching or anything that brought attention to me. If the main focus, if I have a sea of people looking at me, there was no way I was going to be doing that. No way, no how. Forget it. Now look at me. Here I am. Right? So we just don't say never. Don't say never. Never use never. Don't say that word ever. Because you know what? We know what happens. Even Bev and I had these conversations early on, and Bev's like, nope, no, I don't have a desire to do that. No, I don't see myself doing that. No. And I just kept talking to her and schmoozing her and planting seeds. And here we are. So we're going to grow in our own time. We're going to take the roles that we want to take in that moment. We may blossom into bigger roles, or we may not. So it doesn't mean that if you take the role of being the person allowing somebody else to cry on your shoulder, that still has purpose. It doesn't mean that your life purpose is gone to shit because you haven't decided to do anything huge with it. It just means this is where you're at. Honor where you're at. I had to honor where I was at when I was saying, no, I am not a teacher. I'm not a healer. Not happening. I had to honor where I was at, even though I didn't know what that meant, but I do now. So now I can teach about it, right? So I can talk about it. Now, like, honor where I'm at with my business, honor this creativity piece, honor this flow of having to, there's certain intricacies, details that have to happen for other things to blossom. So I got to take care of those details. You got to plant the seed in the soil so it can grow into a rose, right? So that's where I'm at. It's like I feel like I have right now, I have the flower bud, just hasn't completely opened yet. So, but I still have to nurture it and water it and give it the sunlight. And I still have to shine bright and stay in keep my energy up and be in my joy of and honor where I'm at and keep my focus. That is so incredibly important right now in my own experience. Is what I am focused on is coming to fruition. And I ain't lying about that. I say every day I'm a masterful manifester. Every single day I say it at least 3 times or more. And it is no lie. If I'm thinking negative shit happens. If I'm thinking positive stuff happens. And it's just it happens quickly. So focus. I have to focus on the path I am walking instead of giving focus to the path I walked. Because the path I walked is not the same path I am on. It's like miles apart.
It's true. And it's a good thing. It is. And it's even recognizing, for me, it's not one set path. It's not one set path, because if you think about it, I do massage right now. We do our get-togethers every single Tuesday. Every week we get together and we talk to people. So it's like there's such an evolution to all of it. And it could be everything. I journal and I write stuff. Well, that helps to start writing stuff. Does that mean books are coming down the road? Well, it could. But it's like all these things that we do all the time. You do what feels good to you, and then everything will kind of come together. It will. I don't know what that looks like right now, And guess what? I'm 51 years old and it doesn't matter because I'm enjoying the journey, right? Some days it doesn't feel so enjoyable, but after a couple days passes, I can look back and be like, okay, well, that makes sense. I'm glad I was there. I'm glad that everything felt so heavy because I was processing a lot of stuff.
Right.
Oh my gosh, the last week I was just processing a lot of stuff. And sometimes we don't have to always know what that is, but I was processing a lot of emotions. I was letting go of a lot of emotions. It
Yeah.
was an awesome place.
Just allow it to come to the surface. But when it comes to the surface, it's the process of releasing it, not pushing it back down.
Yeah, not ignoring it, not going and keeping yourself busy so you don't have to look at it, because that's what a lot of us have done in our whole lives. Keep yourself busy all the time, because we have learned from being a child how to be distracted. We've been taught to be distracted our whole lives, and now it's up to us. It's a choice. I can still be that person and be distracted, or I can step into this place of like, look at all this amazing stuff that's happening. Look at all the books that have been the ones that have come my way, which I haven't even started reading the ones that you've talked about, but it showed up in a podcast or something I was listening to talking about Dolores Cannon. And then some people like Dolores Cannon, and they said, well, Journey of Souls. So talking about Journey of Souls, that book. And I
Michael
was
Newton.
like, yeah, yeah. Go talking about that. And it's like, okay, I hear you and I'll get to it.
Yeah.
And I will. But
That's
it's a process. Yeah, it is. But it's an awesome, because it's constantly guided. So I know that I'm on the right path. Sometimes I get in my way and like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And Freeman's like, well, you're already doing it. What does that even mean?
Yeah, that's when you throw a tantrum. You're just like,
This is so stupid.
Well,
Sometimes
tell
because
you,
that's how it feels.
right?
It's that obvious stuff that comes easy for us that we don't seem to put much attention to.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll tell you what's a lot more fun now is when I'm doing something and I'm getting the confirmation that I'm doing the thing that's going to be beneficial for me,
Yeah.
instead of getting the warning
Oh, yes.
and ignoring it, and then getting the warning again and ignoring it, and then something harsh happens to really get my attention to make a change. Yeah, I like the confirmations a whole lot more. And that's what, like, those numbers, everything was confirming focus, trust, faith, right? Universe is there. The universe is, one of them said, like, have faith that the universe is, or God, angels are like the behind the scenes, like the stuff we can't see or know, like it would be way too much for our brain to acknowledge, but that the stuff behind the scenes is happening. So the let's say the choreographing of my life is happening. I just got to stay focused on what I'm doing and keep going. Right. And then, well, now I get confirmations. You're right. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. Keep going, keep going, keep going. That's where I'm at. And I love the confirmations. I'm like, yay me. I'm listening. And that's the other thing with the universe. I just please continue to help guide and support me in this life journey. And I intend to listen better and implement what you're guiding me to do. Right. I'm come to that space where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen now. And I'm going to implement it. I'm going to do the best I can. Right. So now I'm acknowledging, like, when the universe gives me information, okay, this is what I need to focus on now, or now I need to look up and see that license plate for my confirmation. Right. So yeah, it's a lot more fun now.
It is. And what you said there, I'm doing what's best for me. That's like so huge. When you said that, that was like the topic that when you had just said all that, that was what I got caught on, because it's true. And it's like to process that doesn't mean that to do what's best for me. And I'm going to walk over, because not that you do this, but I want people to understand that you're not walking all over people to get to where you want to get to. You're not going to steal this information and get all this stuff just so you can get your book out and get up onto this higher place. No, because you'll share the process that you've gone through with everybody else to get them to the same place.
Right.
Because that's how you're guided. But doing what's best for yourself, that is something that's so lost, because you start thinking what's best for everybody else all the time. And that takes you totally away from yourself. That's totally distracts you from yourself, all of it. And it really is. And some people might feel like it sounds selfish, and that's okay, because that's where they're at on their journey, until they can get past the part realizing it's not selfish to want to take care of myself. Because if I don't take care of myself, if I don't do what's best for me, how can I expect anybody else to do what's best for them? That's such a huge statement, to I'm going to do what's best for me.
And
And it's not from an anger standpoint, and it's not from, well, I'm going to do what's best for me. No, it's like, I'm going to do what's best for me, because that feels good.
because it's my truth.
It is, because it
Right.
doesn't have to fight for itself. Exactly.
And when I do what's best for me, and it's in my truth, and I'm being and doing better in myself, and then I'm sharing that information from a teaching standpoint, I'm sharing that information, whether it's through a class or a podcast or a video on social media, I'm sharing the information to put it out there for other people to use it if they want to use it.
Absolutely.
I always come back to the barrel of monkeys. I mean, I personally don't see that game around very much unless you go looking for it, but the barrel of monkeys, where you take the little monkey and you have to, his arms curled, right? And so you have to pick up the next monkey with the arm, and then you try to see how many you can get in a row, right? And so that's what we're doing. We're climbing and we're reaching down and lifting somebody else, and we're climbing and we're reaching down and lifting somebody else. And then those people who are getting better in their life within themselves, they're reaching down, because they could just be an example. They could just be living in their joy and experiencing, their life being better and things working out when their life was a shit show. People are watching you. I'm not kidding you. I am shocked at how many people are watching me. Even though I know I'm on social media, I'm on all these different areas, but even just in town, people are watching me. And I've had people come out, like students or people who know me, and they'll just be like, compliment me, or, hey, you said this on social media and it really resonated and helped me so much. People are watching you. So the better you get in your own life, you are shining that light. You are giving other people hope. And you are probably 80% of the people, you're never going to know it. You're never going to know that you affected their life. But because you're living in your truth, you're being and doing better, you're shining your light, you're living in your joy, they're watching you. And they're like, I want what she's got. And I'm going to keep watching her, because whatever she's doing, however she's behaving, however she's talking, whatever habits she's implemented, if she's caring for her body differently, if she's got a different mind, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to keep watching her, because what she has, I want. So just living by example is good enough. It's good enough when you're living in your own truth.
Yeah. When you stop the wars within inside of you, you don't notice the wars outside of, there is no war outside of you. When you stop judging yourself, the judgment outside of you doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many things that we can go on and on with that, but I mean, there's just a lot of things that it's all within. And the only reason is that showing up inside or outside of you is just to recognize that this is what's going on inside of you. Don't discount your dreams either. I had a dream recently of someone that's been in my life in this lifetime, and it's like, what I say, that was another lifeline. It very well could have been. Could it have been a parallel life? Yeah, we very well could have been, because this person that was in my life was like everything. Every time I would say something, the person would say, "Oh, there you go. There you go, trying to manipulate things. There you go, doing this. Now you're gaslighting me." Like, but none of these things were happening. And it's like, I noticed in that space of that dream that I was stifling myself. And it's like, we can get into such a space of we're hiding our own voice, where, you get smacked so many times, you kind of shy away from this stuff and shy away from using your own voice. But it's like, I'm in a place now that I'm not in that space anymore. I'm not in a space where I'm controlled by another like that. So now I'm in a space where I can flourish. And it's like, it's kind of a weird spot for me, because it's recognizing it doesn't matter if anyone believes what I believe in. Just like that conversation I talked about that I had last week. It doesn't matter whether that person believes what I believe in. I just know what feels good for me. And it's to stand in my truth and just to speak my own truth and still appreciate what the other person had to bring forth. Such an awesome place. So awesome.
And you definitely get really good at seeing people who are living a fear-based life and people are living in from their joy.
Yeah. Because he's
Or
like,
from
man, if
love,
all this
from a
stuff,
space of love.
yeah. And he's like, if all this stuff happens, I hate to be vindicated, but he says it could happen. And I'm like, well, and for me, from my perspective, I always see things from a positive way. I feel like no matter what you can see right now, how someone's looking at it from a negative standpoint, I feel like so much creation is happening right now. We get to be here right now to experience this shift. We get to be witnesses. We're bearing witness to everything that's happening around us. And for me, it feels like it's going in the right direction. It really does. Amidst all the chaos, but it's because I can see it from a higher perspective, from just a different perspective than I could have seen from that space of energy of fear. There's so much more happening right now. It's actually a wonderful thing.
And the chaos that you may be witnessing through social media or the news or anything, I send love to all parties.
Yeah.
All parties. And I just ask that they be in a space of love with themselves, and that they do and be better in themselves, and that they do, especially our world leaders, that they are doing and rising above and doing better for the people. Right? So all parties, I just send them love. So when you get into that space, there's just less fear. There's more ease. And if I dip my energy into what's going on, then that affects my business. And I've come so far, and I've accomplished so much that would reduce my momentum. So I have to be in a space of keeping my focus, right? I have to focus on what I'm working towards and keep taking those action steps. And in the meantime, I'm just spreading love to everybody. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, doesn't matter. I'm just loving everybody. That's where the high vibration is. So that's where I want to be.
Which is awesome, because you could push against it all you want to, and all you're going to do is create more of it. So if you want to separate, right? If you want to separate because that person's doing something bad, or it's being perceived that they're doing something bad, that's creating a separation. And that's also bringing more awareness to that. So we want more of it. We don't want more of it, but that's what we get when we give energy to something like that. We're asking for more of that. So if you're putting out love to everything, you're only going to get back more love from everything. That's just how it shows up. It's going to show up in your life that way.
And love is your truth. Love is your truth.
Lie. That's right. It can't lie.
That is truth. And that is one statement that is, I say it from my perspective, is inarguable. It's not arguable. It's not an arguable statement. Love is your truth.
And if it is arguable, then it's not truth. That means that you're not stepping in. It may not be truth to you right now, but it doesn't mean it won't be truth to you later for someone else that might not be able to see it that way, because you're just not there yet. And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's right.
It's okay. We love you where you're at. I love me where I'm at. I love Bev where she's at. We just keep practicing and doing and being better within ourselves. So this is one video that you could come back and watch 100 times or more and hear something new, because we hit on a lot of stuff today, a lot. So thank you, Bev, for being here. I appreciate you. And thank you for your time and energy, whether you're watching us live or you're watching a replay. And somebody needs to hear these words as well. So be sure to share our content with your friends or family, coworkers, whoever you feel like needs to hear it. You can connect with us. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Podcast Addict, and of course by email. So you can email us at amieandbev@gmail.com. We always love to hear your comments, your questions, and we respond as quickly as we can.
Absolutely.
Any final words, Miss Bev?
We're all important. Don't forget that, because you're all important as well. Everybody is. We're all in this together. It's we.
It's we. It is we. So thank you so much for being here. Tea Time with Amie and Bev. We'll see you next week.